Bitcoin represents a city in cyberspace. And if there's a city in cyberspace, 100,000 companies will launch with 100,000 different ideas on top of that. Is Bitcoin going to be banned, hacked, or copied? Right? It was the biggest crypto asset 3 years ago, but will it be banned? Will it be hacked? Will it be copied? That's the question for any investor. What happens next? Bitcoin is a really good idea, but it's too good idea, so the government's going to ban it.
In a wide-ranging interview with The Block, MicroStrategy Executive Chairman and co-founder Michael Saylor explains why he believes Bitcoin is thermodynamically sound, economic energy, as well as the best bet against inflation. Despite underestimating Bitcoin's volatility, Saylor maintains his unwavering confidence in its potential for widespread adoption. After Bitcoin experienced a significant drop from approximately $69,000 in November 2021 to a low point of about $16,000 by the end of the same year, Saylor acknowledged his underestimation of Bitcoin's volatility. Initially anticipating fluctuations of around 30%, the actual movement in price surpassed his expectations. Michael Saylor believes that while a Bitcoin ETF would be a significant milestone for the industry, it may not necessarily result in substantial price gains. The competition to launch a spot ETF is currently in full swing, with BlackRock rekindling the excitement by filing for a spot Bitcoin fund on June 15, marking its first entry into this domain. According to Saylor, from a technical standpoint, one of the fascinating aspects currently observed is the year-to-date performance of Bitcoin, which has surged by 81%. However, it's worth noting that there is only a single prominent ETF available for purchasing Bitcoin, that is BITO. ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF, BITO, the pioneering futures ETF that debuted in October 2021, recently witnessed a surge in investments amid the crypto ETF wave in June. Over the past week, BITO attracted over $65 million in investments, establishing a new record for 2023. According to CoinDesk, when BITO began trading in October 2021, some experts anticipated that the fund could potentially underperform the spot market by an annualized rate of 10% to 13%. However, in its inaugural year, the fund only lagged behind BTC's performance by 1.8%. This was primarily attributed to the bearish conditions in the crypto market, which helped to mitigate the impact of contango bleed. If not for this mitigating factor, the performance gap during the first 5 months of the year would have been 13.8%. Here are a few glimpses from the discussion that we'd like to show you. Before we proceed, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for more updates.
Technically, one of the interesting things going on right now is if you look year to date at the performance of Bitcoin, it's up 81%. But you know, there's only one ETF. I mean, there's one major ETF I can use to buy it. That's BITO.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what BITO's performance is year to date?
I think it's definitely lagging. What is it, like 4?
61% instead of 81%. It's lagging 20%. Okay. So, like, that's a big deal, right?
20%.
Yeah. Instead of 81%, you've got 61% year to date. So they're achieving that coverage via trading on the CME using futures. But apparently you can't really construct.
You have a decay in the futures-based ETF.
Well, there's a story there. The first year it tracked really well. But in the last year to date, it's off 20%. And if you look at year, over 12 months, Bitcoin's up 43%, BITO's up 31%. So it's lagging 12% in the last 12 months. So there's something there. So if you're an institutional investor, the spot ETF gives you a perfected way to do it as a security, like theoretically perfected. Look, if an ETF charges you 100 basis points a year, then in theory, that costs you 20% of your performance over the course of the duration of the asset. So it's not ideal, but a 25 to 50 basis point ETF would probably be reasonable. You certainly can't take a 10% a year hit, right, trying to do it with futures. And if you can't hold the asset, the issue with buying the asset is not just not just the tax issue or the charter issue. Technically, it's harder, but then you got to go through the custody issue. And so I think the spot ETF is an endorsement of the regulators as a legitimate asset, but also it provides an on-ramp where I could go and I could buy $10 million of it in 30 seconds by punching a button. And the alternative would be you could spend 30 months as an institutional investor and not be able to technically buy the same amount of exposure because of all the legal and accounting and governance factors that come into play. I probably underestimated the volatility about a year ago. You know, before the entire meltdown when Bitcoin hit 66,000, I didn't think it would draw down to 16,000. I would have thought, I would think it'd be a volatility plus or minus 30% or something, and it turned out to be a bit more brutal this cycle. So sometimes just slightly underestimate the volatility. It's very difficult to figure out where we are in the life cycle. Otherwise, you know, everything that I thought would happen is happening. I think sometimes people, they personalize this and they think, oh yeah, BlackRock is this one entity or ESG is this one entity or the bankers are against us. I don't think that's the way the world is. I think the world is 100 million organizations all trying to do the best thing as they see it with different information. And sometimes, you know, the 800-pound gorilla rolls over your leg and breaks your leg, but they didn't notice they broke your leg. You know, I think that Bitcoin is a solution that's helpful to every person, every corporation, every government, every agency. I think it's just a constructive, useful thing. It's thermodynamically sound economic energy. So it's a well-engineered economic network. And that being the case,
as per Michael Saylor analysis, as we approach the 3-year milestone since August, with only 2 months remaining to complete 3 years, we find ourselves 34 months into this experiment. Notably, silver has witnessed a decline of 21% over this period. Additionally, S&P has outperformed Nasdaq, while Bitcoin has surged by an impressive 153%. Consequently, Bitcoin's performance has surpassed that of the S&P by a factor of 5, leaving gold far behind in the dust. According to Saylor, Bitcoin is faster, smarter, and stronger than gold, with all of the advantages of gold, a bearer instrument with no counterparty risk that's a non-sovereign store of value. He also said, gold is expensive to hold, it's centralizing, people can steal it from you, and gold miners keep debasing it by making more gold. Saylor believes that gold will ultimately fail as an asset as more individuals recognize the superior properties offered by Bitcoin in comparison to the traditional yellow metal. MicroStrategy made history on August 10, 2020, by becoming the inaugural publicly traded company to incorporate Bitcoin into its capital allocation strategy. The company declared its intention to acquire $250 million worth of Bitcoin from its non-yielding cash reserves.
Since August, we're now not quite 3 years into it, but I guess in 2 months will be 3 years. So we're 34 months into this experiment. Silver is down 21% since that day. Silver is disaster. Bonds, if you bought long-dated bonds, they're down 19%. So, you could have guessed a very weak commodity and credit, both of those not good investments. What about gold? Gold's down 5%. Gold's dead money. So all that money printing, none of it found its way into gold. So what went up in value? Or what up in price, at least? The NASDAQ is up 23%, and the S&P is up 29%. So actually, the S&P outperformed NASDAQ. With NASDAQ, you kind of had some winners, and you had some losers. Bitcoin is up 153%. So Bitcoin's outperforming the S&P by a factor of 5. It's left gold in the dust. We know, I don't have a particular real estate index to give you, but I think you know anecdotally commercial real estate was high, and now it's getting hammered by the interest rates coming up, and residential real estate advanced rapidly for about a year or two, and now mortgage rates are 7%, and people are talking about the residential real estate market being down. Let me give you a few more stats that are interesting. MicroStrategy bought the 250 million of Bitcoin, and then our Dutch auction resulted in only about 60 million getting tendered. So we took another 175 million and bought more Bitcoin. Then our stock rallied, and so we bought more Bitcoin, and then we were able to issue a convertible bond and buy more Bitcoin, 650 million worth of it. And then we were able to issue $1 billion convertible bond at 0% interest and buy more Bitcoin. And then we were able to sell $1 billion worth of equity and buy more Bitcoin. Then we were able to issue a junk bond. Actually, the junk bond became before the equity, 500 million at 6% interest, which looks pretty cheap now. We bought more Bitcoin. And, all told, we bought a bit more than $4 billion of Bitcoin. And we bought it at every price. We bought it at 10,000. We bought it at 20, 30, 40, 50. We even bought some at 60,000. Okay, net result, think of it as Bitcoin cost averaging, for a corporation. Our stock's up 165%. So we actually outperformed Bitcoin over the same time period simply by adopting a Bitcoin standard and sweeping cash flows and equity and debt and the like into Bitcoin.
In conclusion, the competition to launch a spot ETF is heating up, with BlackRock filing for a spot Bitcoin fund. Saylor also finds the year-to-date performance of Bitcoin intriguing, with an 81% increase. The ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF, BITO, experienced a surge in investments following the crypto ETF wave, attracting over $65 million in a week, setting a new record for 2023. Do you agree with Michael Saylor's outlook for Bitcoin? We encourage you to share your views in the comments section. If you found this content informative, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for the most up-to-date news and videos. We appreciate your input and look forward to hearing from you again soon.